Hello everyone and welcome to hopefully what will be a pretty brief video. My name is Bill Murphy. I'm from New Hampshire. I am a member of the New Hampshire Pain Collaborative, which is the small team that wrote and then ushered through legislation that is now law in the state of New Hampshire regarding the treatment of chronic pain and the use of opioid therapy when doing so. Just a little bit about myself. I am a pain patient myself, 25 years plus. I am also a patient advocate. I met, several years ago, I met a couple of other patient advocates through the Don't Punish Pain rally. Myself and Amy Slater were state organizers for New Hampshire. We met another pain patient who runs a large pain support group here in New Hampshire. Her name is Bobby Blades. And then somehow in that process, we also met a key player on our team, Dr. Dave Nangle, who is a pain management specialist and also a published author on pain and chronic pain patients and the treating of them. So the purpose of this video is I've been asked by hundreds of people to please help them in getting past a bill similar to what we have in New Hampshire in their state. So anyway, I want to keep this brief, so I'll get right into it. As I mentioned, the team of folks, there were 4 of us, 3 patients and 1 physician. I would highly recommend that anyone setting off on this path, the first thing you do is form a small team. If most of you are patients, most of you are dealing with pain, so there are going to be plenty of times when you cannot be somewhere you need to be. And the benefit of the team is, at least in our case, when one couldn't be there, the others could. And that was the theme, one major theme throughout this entire process, is we always supported each other, backfilled for each other where we could. So the team is critical. Now, many of the requests I get is from people saying, how can I get this bill passed in my state? I want to send it to a state rep. I want to send it to a state senator and say, let's do this in my state. Well, I'll tell you right up front, that process 99% of the time will not work. You can't rely on sending someone else's legislation to a state rep, to a state senator via email, and asking them to just go get it done. First of all, you need to find someone who is sympathetic to the cause, and which is a difficult thing to do. But secondarily, senators and reps need to know that they have someone out there who's going to work with them. I think it would be rare where you would find a state rep or a state senator who's willing to pick this up and run with it while you then step away. I just don't think that's realistic. So just taking someone else's work and then sending it off to your state rep, state senator, it's just not it's not the best approach. What you first need to do after having formed the team is you have to recognize that every state is different. What exists in every state, via whether it be statutory law or regulation, or even the environment, how anti-opioid is your state, the current environment. That team needs to do a lot of research into what exists currently. Here in New Hampshire, we were fortunate that there was no statutory law when we started this endeavor. There were regulations, the Board of Medicine, the Board of Pharmacy, and so on. So what we did, and what I highly recommend you do, is after forming that team, you dig into what exists in your state. You become the expert on what exists in your state. Because believe it or not, I mean, well, actually you can believe it. State senators, state reps, they have a lot on their plate. There's a ton of laws, ton of regulations on the books. They're not going to know them all. It's certainly not in detail. You need to become the expert so that when you're further down the road and meeting with these folks and they have questions about what exists, you need for them to look to you as the expert, the person who knows. And I'll give you an example of why. What we began with was we took bills that were being proposed in other states. We took many of the writings from Red Lawhern, which he willingly offered, and we looked at all of that as it related to what existed in New Hampshire. And we found that, as an example, the bill in Rhode Island, good for Rhode Island, actually would have been a step back for us in New Hampshire. So there were some things that they sought out that would result in improvements for them that would have been a step back for us. So it's important to, if you just were to take someone else's bill and throw it to a state rep and they did take it and run with it and you didn't know what existed, it could set you back rather than move you forward. So that's a key example why that team needs to learn what exists today and become the experts in what exists today, so that whatever you end up writing for legislation, your proposal, it will move your state forward. Now, one point, don't worry so much about writing in the format of a bill. Once you do find someone to sponsor your bill, as long as the language is written, they will send it off to bill writers that are assigned to them, or assigned to do that work. And they will then also research what exists today, and they'll put your language in bill format, and they'll make all the appropriate references to existing statutory law or regulation, all of that. So what comes back to you will be in bill format. That's not on you to do that. So the key thing is to start working on the language that you feel, once knowing your state, will move your state forward, and then writing that language down and getting the small team each to agree upon it, and then move forward from there. And of course, moving forward from there is part of the real work and the difficult work. The next step is finding, and you can be doing this, by the way, none of this is done sequentially. You can be working all of these things at the same time, but you need to be working on finding a state rep or a state senator who will sponsor your bill. The thing you cannot do is let people ignoring you, people not responding to you, to stop you dead in your tracks. You have to accept that there will be roadblocks. There will be people who won't be supportive of what you're doing, who won't want to put their name on a bill like this. You can't let that stop you. You have to be persistent. You have to keep looking. I guarantee you, somewhere out there in your state is a state rep or a state senator who either themselves or has a loved one who suffers with chronic pain and who has been impacted by the lack of available opioid therapy for that person. So you need to find that person. They're out there. You need to find it. You need to stay persistent in looking for that person. In New Hampshire, we found that person in the form of State Senator John Reagan. We were introduced to him through another friend, a chronic pain patient. So you find that person, as we did, and then we worked with that person. We met with him. We explained our purpose. So the first thing that happened was he sent it off to I'll just call them bill writers. And they formatted the language, as I mentioned earlier, did the research they needed to do, and then produced what would then be something that would go before that arm of your state legislature that actually assigns bill numbers. Now, there is some back and forth in that process. So you never want to assume that what went into the state rep or state senator, what you gave them is what you're getting back. So that's a give and take process. You need to work with the sponsoring rep or senator, or even potentially directly with the bill writers, which we were able to do to some extent, to further work on the language parts that were put in that we didn't quite understand, or maybe weren't in total agreement with. Or in any case, it's a give and take process. You work through that and you end up with something that that you feel going forward would be beneficial to your state. From that point, and again, none of this needs to be done sequentially, and actually I'd recommend that it not be done sequentially. As much as you folks as a team can handle, given your health, I think you need to be getting to know each other, working on the language, and going out and making connections with not only reps and senators, but your state medical society, your state key members of your state medical board, key members of your state board of pharmacy, folks like that. You need to find allies on those different boards, for example, the medical society, areas like that. You need to find allies, people who understand the legislative process probably better than you do, and will help you through that, and also will help you in influencing other people, others on the boards, others in the medical society, others, state reps, state senators, because ultimately this is all going to come down to a vote, and it's unlikely you'll get a vote of approval from your state house and your state reps and your state senators if the Board of Medicine is against it, if the Board of Pharmacy is against it, if the medical society is against it. So you need to work with them, which will involve compromise to some extent, but you do need to work with them to gain their support, to gain their support going forward. None of this is rocket science. I'm not going to tell you anything today that you wouldn't have figured out on your own. So it's not rocket science. It's just a lot of time. It's a lot of hard work. It's a lot of persistence. It's a lot of being told no, 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 but not going away, continuing to work it. It's also important not to burn bridges. So, there's a lot of folks in the chronic pain community who are angry, rightly so, angry because of the loss of their pain medication. You never want to be angry when speaking with these folks. You never want to. You want to maintain a level of professionalism. You want to maintain a level of tact. You want to know going in what you've written is not up for discussion, and what areas you're willing to work through in order to gain a key partner's support. So you need to figure all that out in advance, and then go into these meetings, discussions. Some of them, oftentimes early on, they're with one or two people you've identified as key people, and then as you get further into the process, you start meeting with the entire Board of Medicine, the entire medical society, the entire each regulatory board typically has legislative committees that are reviewing all legislation that's coming up that relates to their discipline. So you'll meet with those legislative committees. I mean, there's a lot of meeting that goes on. And again, this goes back to forming the team to begin with, because inevitably, one or two of you aren't going to be able to make all of these sessions. And so you need the other folks on board to step up, to backfill for you. Another thing in New Hampshire we had was back in 2016 when the CDC guidelines came out, we had a governor in place at the time who wanted those put into the Board of Medicine rule. we had a group of folks who participated in the writing of that, however, who were understanding of the impact that those guidelines were going to have, and obviously did have. So they wrote a Board of Medicine rule here in New Hampshire, opioid prescribing rule, that was not as restrictive as many other states. And that kind of goes back to what I mentioned earlier in terms of the Rhode Island bill. What existed in Rhode Island was much more restrictive than what existed in New Hampshire. So again, had we just gone forward with what they had, it would have negatively impacted us. So again, understanding the environment that you're working within, the tone of the state government, everyone, how anti-opioid are they? How open to discussing the possibilities are they? On our team, I'll tell you right up front, on our team, we were super fortunate to have Dr. Dave Nagel. He was a member of the team that wrote the initial Board of Medicine rule for opioid prescribing. So he had a lot of history in this state relative to pain management, the treatment of chronic pain. He had a family member who suffered with chronic pain. He's a pain management physician himself. So he, signing him up, getting him to join us and be a key participant was critical, because he already knew a lot of folks who are still around today, who were very helpful to us in ushering this legislation through the process. So to the extent that you can find a professional, a physician, or somebody in the medical society, someone of that who has some history in the state, and who was also sympathetic to what you're trying to do, getting them to join your team will go a long way toward making this an easier thing to accomplish for you. So say you've gone through all of this, and now you have a bill that's been assigned a number. The next step is that bill will be assigned to a committee, more than likely the Health and Human Services Committee. That was our bill. It was assigned because we had a senator as our sponsor. It got assigned to the Senate Health and Human Services Committee. We then began to lobby members of the Health and Human Services Committee for support of this bill, so that by the time it got to a hearing where we had to go and provide testimony before the HHS committee, most of them knew who we were. Most of them came to understand our backgrounds, why we were so invested in this. So again, it's relationship building. You have to build those relationships and just kind of like smooth everything out before you get into that room. So when we went before the committee to provide testimony, we had each of our team members did so. We also had about, I would guess, we had a room packed full of people, which is, you always want to do that. You want to pack that committee room full of people. But you want to the extent that you can manage it, you want to manage who will speak before the committee. Because here again, you want to, this is a lot of managing, and to some extent it doesn't sound right or above board, but in the end, you want this thing to go through, you want it to get passed. So there's some things you just need to do. You don't want someone testifying before the committee who's going to be extremely radical, who might be extremely angry, and just basically not do your cause any good. So you kind of want to manage who's going to speak before the committee, what they're going to touch upon. You want to make sure that you focus on personal stories. that's what the committee will really listen to. That's what really will have impact on them. That's what they'll remember. The data they can always get at, the data they can always follow up with one of you to get at. So that's not as important. And a lot of times that's the stuff you share long before the committee, the testimony before the committee. If you feel like you're going to hit a bump in the road along the way in the legislative process, some technicality, in this case it was COVID, reach out to the sponsoring senator, reach out to the committee that has your bill, and make sure you talk with them about other ways to work this through. They know best, so rely on them for that. But you need to be the one, kind of nudging them along, because they've got a lot on their plate, and they're not necessarily going to think of this proactively on their own. Do the nudging you need to do to make whatever is possible. So again, in our case, the bill passed. Listen, as I said, this is not rocket science. I didn't expect that I would be telling you folks anything that you would be like, oh, I never would have thought of that. It's really not rocket science. It's a lot of, it's not, I'll just go over this again. It's not simply taking someone else's bill and sending it off to a representative. It's not simply sending them emails saying, I want this, I want that. You need to be placing phone calls. You need to be writing handwritten letters. You need to be scheduling meetings with staff of these folks. You need to be getting in front of them in meetings. In most cases, they're not going to agree to just meet with you based on your first interaction. So again, it's persistence. It's not taking no for an answer. That's really all I have for you now. I hope this helps. All right, take care. Good luck.